Blickling Hall, one of England's greatest Jacobean showpiece mansions, lies not 2 miles northwest of Aylsham in Norfolk. It is a beautiful place, surrounded by woods, farms, sweeping parkland and gardens. Gardens that were old in the 15th century, and which once surrounded the 15th century moated manor house of the Boleyn family, the predecessor of the present building. That house is long gone, but it was in its day the cradle of a remarkable dynasty. And here in those ancient gardens, and within the mellow red-brick gabled house, in the dawning years of the 16th century, the 3 children who were its brightest scions once played in the spacious and halcyon summers of their early childhood, long before they made their dramatic debut on the stage of history. Anne Boleyn, who would one day become Queen of England. Her brother George Boleyn, who would also court fame and glory, but who would ultimately share his sister's tragic and brutal fate. And their sister Mary Boleyn, who would become the mistress of kings and gain a notoriety that is almost certainly undeserved. Blickling was where the Boleyn siblings' lives probably began, the protective setting for their infant years, nestling in the broad, rolling landscape of Norfolk, circled by a wilderness of woodland, sprinkled with myriad flowers, such as bluebells, meadowsweet, loosestrife, and marsh orchids, and swept by the eastern winds. Norfolk was the land that shaped them, that remote corner of England that had grown prosperous through the wool-cloth trade, its chief city, Norwich, which lay just a few miles to the south, being second in size only to London in the Boleyn's time. Norfolk also boasted more churches than any other English shire, miles of beautiful coastline, and a countryside and waterways teeming with a wealth of wildlife. Here at Blickling, 9 miles from the sea, the Boleyn children took their first steps, learned early on that they had been born into an important and rising family, and began their first lessons. Anne and George Boleyn were to take centre-stage roles in the play of England's history. By comparison, Mary was left in the wings, with fame and fortune always eluding her. Instead, she is remembered as an infamous whore. And yet of those 3 Boleyn siblings, she was ultimately the luckiest, and, unlike her sister, the most happy. This is Mary's story. Mary Boleyn has aptly been described as a young lady of both breeding and lineage. She was born of a prosperous landed Norfolk family of the knightly class. The Boleyns, whom Anne Boleyn claimed were originally of French extraction, were settled at Salles, near Aylsham, before 1283, when the register of Walsingham Abbey records a John Boleyn living there. But the family can be traced in Norfolk back to the reign of Henry II, 1154 to 1189. The earliest Boleyn inscription in Salles Church is to John's great-great-grandson, Thomas Boleyn, who died in 1411. He was the son of another John Boleyn and related to Ralph Boleyn, who was living in 1402. Several other early members of the family, including Mary's great-great-grandparents, Geoffrey and Alice Boleyn, were buried in Salles Church, which is like a small cathedral, rising tall and stately in its perpendicular splendour in the flat Norfolk landscape. The prosperous village it once served, which thrived upon the profitable wool trade with the Low Countries, has mostly disappeared. The surname Boleyn was spelt in several ways, there being no uniformity in spelling in former times, when it was given as B-O-L-E-Y-N, B-O-L-E-Y-N-E, B-O-L-L-E-Y-N-E, B-O-L-L-E-G-N-E, B-O-L-E-I-G-N-E, B-O-L-E-N, B-U-L-L-E-N, B-O-U-L-E-N, B-O-U-L-L-A-N-T, or Boullan, the French form. The bull's heads on the family coat of arms are a pun on the name.